Hey guys, Kakarot197 again. This time with a review of the 1/100 scale Master Grade Gym White Dingo version. And as you can tell by the box, this is a P-Bandai. Another thing you should be able to immediately tell is how amazing this thing looks in the White Dingo colors. It is a much more monochrome, down-to-earth machine, especially when compared to the very minty green, flashy colors of the original Gym. Although it has to be said that when you compare it to the color scheme of the units in-game, it is slightly different. The white should be more grayish and the black should also be more grayish. A good comparison for this is the high-grade Universal Century, which in my opinion completely nailed the color scheme of the original game, because in some more modern games, the Master Grade color scheme is seen. Another thing that I have to mention about the appearance of my Gym in particular is he is using the separated front skirts rather than the single front skirt. This being the Gym 2.0, you can of course replicate that, but personally I am a much bigger fan of these separate front skirts. Another thing that's more like the modern games, the proportions. Of course, this is the 2.0 Gym, so we have the more anime accurate, please blow me up, good guy vibe going on with the proportions, as opposed to the Gym 1.0 proportions, which the game seems to have been based on. But that doesn't mean I would have preferred the 1.0 necessarily. With the 2.0, all of the seam lines have been hidden and we require virtually no stickers. And the only two stickers that we get are a nice metallic green one for the front camera and one for the back camera. And we don't even necessarily need them because we do get a translucent green plastic piece for that. So for people who like modding their model kits, you could even try to install an LED in there. And for some more good news, we also get a really big sheet of Waterslide Decals. We have White Dingo markings, Earth Federation markings, various warning symbols, basically everything you'd want to put on your White Dingo Gym. And talking about things that you can put on the Gym, the accessories. Starting off with what's already on the machine, we get a single beam saber. It has a hole on the side, there are pegs in the hand, and they fit in there absolutely perfectly. And of course, we get a pair of pink beam effect parts to put in there. And the second beam effect part doesn't necessarily have to go to waste, because you can actually open up the second beam saber holder and plug in this second beam saber to have your Gym as more of a commander version. Then, as with every Gym, we get a beam spray gun, and this is an original 2.0 weapon, so the engineering on it is top-notch, almost no seam lines to be spotted, and there are of course holes to put in those pegs in the hands. And again, it is an absolute perfect fit. Posing with this won't be a problem whatsoever. For some heavier firepower, we get the Hyper Bazooka, and just as with the beam spray gun, this is a 2.0 weapon, which means there are almost no seam lines on this thing whatsoever. We do get a few molding lines, but you can very easily sand them down. Then as for movable parts, the handle will go down slightly so that it makes posing with it much easier. And again, just as with the beam spray gun, it does have a hole for the pegs on the hands, meaning that the connection is super secure for posing. And in case that you don't want to use the Hyper Bazooka, this isn't actually mentioned in the manual, but you can open up this tab and attach it to the hole on the backpack. Then the next weapon is the machine gun, typically seen with ground gyms, but also used very often by the White Dingoes. This is from an older model kit, so you will see more seam lines on this thing. It does have some nice moving parts. This stock will move over and lock into place, and then when it's extended, it will also lock into place. It does have a movable handle for nice dual-handed posing options, and also a removable ammo clip. Unfortunately, because this is of course the regular Gym, it doesn't have any spare ammo packs anywhere. Also, because this weapon was designed for the ground Gundam and the ground Gym, it does not have a hole in the handle to go onto the pegs in the hands. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't fit in there. It is just slightly looser, but because of those 2.0 hands, you won't have too much problems, especially if you decide to go with the two-handed route. Then the final official weapon that we're getting is this bazooka, and just as with the machine gun from the ground Gym and the ground Gundam, this is an older weapon, so you will see some more seam lines on this thing. But again, it does have some nice features. There is a removable ammo pack. Again, you do not get any spare ammo clips, and this shoulder rest will move forwards and backwards to aid with posing. What will not aid you with posing is the handle that does not move whatsoever. But again, 2.0 hands to the rescue. Because they are so posable, they basically rescue the posability with the bazooka. If these had been the newer style hands that cannot move, posing with this bazooka would have been severely impacted. Then the final weapon that we're getting is the beam rifle. Just as with the machine gun and the bazooka, this is from an older model kit, the Ground Jim, Ground Gundam. So again, we do get some seam lines, but we do have a movable handle. And why did I call the bazooka the final actual weapon? Well, that is because despite being able to build the entire thing, according to the manual, these are just junk parts. The only problem is that you do not get a sticker for the scope, but in my opinion, this thing is more than usable. And when it comes to posing, it is a very similar story as with the machine gun. Even though there's no hole in the handle, the 2.0 hands can make do. Although keep in mind that because of the design of the beam rifle, it does tend to fall forwards a little bit, so using both hands might be preferable here. Now, with all of those weapons on our gym, we can't just forget about the defense. And for that, we first get this very Ground Jim, Ground Gundam-esque looking shield. But don't be fooled, this is actually mostly new parts. The only two that we get from those old kits is the big white part and the handle. The spiky part is completely new, and this holding part is actually from the Jim 2.0. And when it comes to articulation, this joint here will rotate around and will also hinge at that joint, meaning that you can mount the shield on either the side of the arm or at the back of the arm. And then finally, we also get the regular Jim 2.0 shield. Keep in mind, we only get one connector to connect it to the arm, so you will either have to use the ground shield or the 2.0 shield. You can't use them together unless, of course, you get a second Jim. Then for movement on this shield, this is on a track, so you can make the shield higher or lower, and this handlebar will also move so that the Jim can also hold on to it with its hands. And then the blast shield will also move up and down. And for storage purposes, both shields can also be mounted on the back, but again, they require that same joint, so you'll have to choose which one you want to use. And with all of that loaded onto the Jim, it might not be a bad idea to use an action base. And for that, we get a specific connector so that it can be mounted on there with the least interference. Then we also get a tiny but extremely detailed standing pilot figure, in addition to the one that goes inside of the cockpit. Of course, as with every remold and recolor, we do get a bunch of leftover parts. Some of them can be immediately used to give your Jim White Dingo version a slightly different color, such as a white backpack, gray lower body, gray side skirts, front skirts, a gray back skirt, gray head, and gray shins. And a gray collar, I guess we'll just call this. And then of course we also get a bunch of parts that you can't immediately use, but I guess you could put to some use for either another model kit or for this one. We get the Easy 8's antenna, which would look good on the rather plain Jim head. We get some upper legs, we get some lower arms, we get... Oh, I think I used the wrong magazine. We get a spare magazine that doesn't really mount anywhere, but you could make it mount somewhere. And finally, some random parts from the Easy 8. These are some mechanics from the chest, the Vulcan, the pilot chair, a thing that goes into the storage container on the back, a part of the head. Also, these three random parts that would also be left over with the regular Jim 2.0. So, things you can maybe use, maybe not. Something that has been proven extremely useful over the years is the 2.0 frame. Even though it's already getting kind of old, it still holds up extremely well today. Whether it's the amazing articulation that it offers or the amazing detail on the inside. The only kind of bad thing that you can say about it is that the waist articulation is more limited than modern kits, But on the flip side, that is because of the core block system, which is a canonical feature of the Jim. So let's have a look at the amazing articulation that this inner frame has to offer. The head is on a double ball joint, but it will mostly be the bottom ball joint doing all of the moving. Goes forwards a little bit, backwards, also kind of limited for what a master grade can do, but does have a lot of wiggle and will also rotate around all the way. And the arms are amazingly articulated, go forwards really far all the way like that, will go upwards as well for some last shooting action, should you want your Jim to do the last shooting. Let's put that back in, backwards, not really a huge lot, and the arms go up nicely all the way like that, and that is without the extra shoulder joint going up. Then we'll rotate around below the shoulder. Of course, these things will individually flap out should you need to. The elbows are double jointed all the way like that. Perfect. The hands on these 2.0 machines are extremely well articulated. First of all, the wrist is on a ball joint and the hand is on a ball joint, allowing for some very extreme wiggling around, turning around, and everything a ball joint does. And in addition to that, the hand is also on a hinge, allowing for even more extreme poses with this thing. And talking about extreme poses, the thumb is on a ball joint, and then every finger is itself on a ball joint with an additional hinge joint. Now, these three lower fingers are molded together, but they can be separated. Then the waist, as I said, it is rather limited, but that doesn't mean that we get no articulation whatsoever. First of all, it will go side to side a little bit, not a lot, and then forwards and backwards because of a joint that's lowered, so you will see the side skirts, or the front skirts, move together with the backwards and forwards movement. Then talking about the front skirts and the side skirts, you will have to be a little bit careful with them. They are all on ball joints and they can sometimes pop out, but when you're careful, you will get some really amazing articulation out of them. As I said, that was the side skirt that flew off. Like I said, if you're careful, you can get them up really far. Then when we turn them around to the back skirt, this thing is movable, but how far it can move is dependent on the front skirt. As you can see, now it moves only a little bit, allowing the legs backwards about that far. But when you're careful, you can get it up that far, allowing the legs even more backwards movement. If you're careful, the sideways movement is equally impressive. And with all that talk about the waist, we can't forget that it also simply rotates around. And then when we open up the cockpit, you're not greeted by a little pilot, but by an extra hatch instead. So when we remove the top of the Jim, we can open up this hatch to reveal the little pilot inside. Then the legs will rotate around and bend at the knee at two joints with working pistons. And we get a similar feature with the feet. The ankle guard goes up and down, and when we remove this piece, which is actually not connected whatsoever and can kind of easily fall out when you're moving him. So once we pull this out, you will see another set of pistons, and when we move the foot, again, those working pistons are marvelous to admire. We basically get two joints. We have a ball joint at the bottom and a hinge joint at the top, which also allows for some sideways hinging and forwards hinging. Overall, it offers the foot really good forwards movement with that extra toe joint, then really good backwards movement again with the toe joint. Then we have some good side-to-side movement, and we'll also rotate around. Although not all the way, because of course we do have those working pistons on both sides. And finally, something that kind of moves but doesn't really. The thrusters are technically on ball joints, but they're so far in there that they don't really move at all. As always, the inevitable question is, do you want to buy this? And for 3,500 yen, the exact same price as the regular Jim version 2.0, this model kit is an absolute hell yes. I honestly can't believe that a remold / recolor with so much extra stuff is the same price as the model kit that it's based on. I have seen it before that a recolor comes with slightly more stuff than the base model, such as with the Jim Kais, but to this extent, that is mind-blowing. Yes, it is a P-Bandai, so you will have to pay a premium in order to get it. But if you live in a region that can get P-Bandais for the regular price, whether you're someone who paints or straight builds or whatever the hell you want to do with your model kits, this is not just the definitive version of the Jim 2.0, but it might just be one of the best bang for the buck Jims you can get, period. If you're a fan of the proportions of the Jim 2.0, you have to get this. The base model kit is, simply put, amazing. The white Dingo color scheme, amazing. The amount of accessories, nothing short of amazing. So again, this model kit is highly recommended by me, but unfortunately it is a P-Bandai. Then finally, for some size comparisons, first of all, here is next to the Master Grade Jim Sniper Custom and the Master Grade Jim 1.0. If you're looking for a non-P-Bandai Jim with an amazing bang for your buck, the Jim Sniper Custom is your unit. Just like the white Dingo version, it uses that amazing 2.0 frame, it looks amazing, and it comes with some amazing accessories. Then when it comes to the 1.0 Jim, there are some things that I genuinely think the 1.0 does better. You can store the beam spray gun on the side skirt. The bazooka mounts on a rack on the backpack instead of just being slapped onto the backpack. But of course, it is the 1.0. Its quality is significantly lower along with articulation and everything else. And then here is next to some more modern machines in the same lineage, the Jim Command Space Type and the J-Gun. And that's all for this review on the Jim White Dingo version. Which means that of course the next thing I have to build is the Jim Cannon White Dingo version. So stay tuned for that. As always, a big thank you to the Patreon supporters. I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you all next time.